Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us. So glad to be back in the studio. I wasn't in the studio last week, and I missed it. I really did. You know, people talk about retirement. If I didn't do this, I would really miss it. I don't know what I would do. I'd probably bore my wife to death because we'd be sitting at the kitchen table and I'd be talking about hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping. And she'd say, "Why don't you go back to work? Because you're driving me crazy." I wasn't here because I was in White River, Ontario, Canada, on a bear hunt with Ron St. Louis. Now, this is something I've been talking about for a couple of weeks on the show. Long story short, I had a great hunt. I had a wonderful hunt. It was a lot of fun. And I didn't get a bear. And that wasn't a surprise. I told you going up there, I wasn't going up there to shoot a bear. I was going up there on a bear hunt. I was going up there to see my friends in White River. I was going up there to see some beautiful country. I was going up there to hopefully have some close-up interactions with bears. And it was going to have to be just the right bear for me to let an arrow fly out of that dart and crossbow. It was going to have to be a black-colored bear of, I don't know, 300 pounds or so, or it was going to have to be a different color black bear. And I didn't see either one of those. So I came home without a bear. And that's okay. In fact, I hunted 3 days. I only saw one bear. It was a sow, probably 175-ish pounds, maybe 200 pounds, just an average, respectable bear. Certainly a fine target for anybody who wanted to take it. In my case, I've taken enough bears that I really wasn't interested in something like that. Plus, I've got my Michigan bear hunt coming up. I didn't want 2 bears in the freezer. But this bear did treat me to something that I always look forward to. Now, when I bear hunt, I hunt out of a ground blind. I don't go up in a tree stand. I like to be at eye level. I like to be at ground level while I'm bear hunting, and preferably close so I can see them and listen to them and watch them, and I just love that part of bear hunting. Well, this particular bear gave me quite a treat. I say she was a sow just from the shape of her body, and I'm quite convinced it was a sow. Didn't have cubs, just a lone sow came in. She came into the bait, and she's looking over at me in the blind. She's looking at the blind, right? I have shot very few bears that I feel didn't know I was there. In fact, I might be able to make the statement every bear I've ever shot, I believe, knew I was there, but they made the decision to come in anyway. So this sow comes in about 7:30 in the evening, comes into the bait. She's a little skittish, which actually made me feel good because I thought, okay, if she's hinky, there's a bigger bear around here somewhere. She came into the bait, she circled around it, she looked at it, she didn't tip it over, and then she disappeared. I thought she'll come back, or a bigger bear has run her off and I just haven't seen the bigger bear yet. About 10 seconds later, and all right, so I'm sitting in this Wraith see-through ground blind, the one from Primal that I love so much. And I love it because you can see out the sides of it, but the critters can't see in. Out of the side of this bait, I see this bear walking up to the blind. She's curious. Bears don't have great eyesight. They rely on a sense of smell. She knew something was in that blind, right? She didn't know what it was. She's curious. She's not aggressive. She's not dangerous. She's just cool and beautiful. And bears do not make a sound. It's amazing to me how a 200-300 pound animal can walk through the woods and not make a sound. Deer will make noise when they come through the woods. Bears don't make any noise. So she comes up to the blind. She's looking in the blind. I had just enough notice that she was coming because I was in that see-through wraith that I was able to take the camera, the video camera, and pan it to the left just a little bit. So she walked into the frame. She's standing in front of me in the blind. She kept walking up to the blind. I've got the whole thing on camera. She got as close as about 6 feet. So I'm sitting in my blind. I'm looking out the front of the blind, and 6 feet in front of me, looking in the blind, is a beautiful Canada black bear. That is the type of experience that I wanted to have when I went up to White River. I've had this happen before. It's not uncommon. And that's one of the reasons why I like hunting from a ground blind. It's that close-up, intimate interaction with the bears. Now, the first time it happened, it made me a little nervous. I've had it happen enough times now that I wasn't concerned at all. I was excited because it was cool, but I wasn't scared. I've had bears come up and brush against the blind. I've had them sit outside the blind and breathe and sniff at the side of the blind trying to find me, trying to smell me. This sow came up. She almost put her nose in the blind. And then I think she caught just maybe a little bit of movement because I was panning the camera with her, and I think she got a little bit of my hand up there on the camera. And she took off. And she didn't come back. And that was fine. It was really cool. Now, on that bait, I had seen pictures of bears that were coming in the morning. So I did something I'd never done before. I went out for a morning hunt, my last day up there. I went out and hunted the morning because it was a little bit warm during the day, but cooler in the evenings. Didn't see anything at all, but that was fine. In all, it was another great hunt. I will go back there next year. Spring or fall yet, I don't know. But as I say, I wasn't too concerned about shooting a bear because I've got a Michigan bear hunt coming up at the end of September up in the UP. In preparation for that yesterday, I went to the range at Duncan's Outdoor Shop in Bay City, and I sighted in my new AR, my 350 Legend from Brenton, USA. That's a beautiful gun. This will be the first time I've ever bear hunted with a gun. In fact, I haven't hunted many things with a gun. I love guns. I'm very comfortable with guns, but I realized that I'm not knowledgeable on the AR platform. And I need to spend more time with that gun. We ran about 20 rounds through it. We started at 25 yards to see how it was, worked our way out to 200. That Brenton has a loophole scope on it, a 1x5 scope, which will be fine for the youth hunt. It'll be fine for my Michigan bear hunt. But I think when it comes time to the Michigan deer season, I might put a little longer scope on it because at 200 yards, when I would zoom that scope all the way in, I still couldn't get a good look at the target that I was shooting at. Man, I'm really excited about this. Really excited about spending more time with that gun, breaking it in, becoming more familiar with it, becoming more accurate with it. I mean, not that I was inaccurate. At 100 yards, the gun was dead on. I posted a video of that on my Facebook. I put it on Facebook, YouTube, a couple of other places as well. What else? Oh, so while I'm, let's see, I think I was home from White River. I'm texting my friend Brad Dupuis, Mr. AnglerQuest of AnglerQuest Boats. And we were talking about hunting, actually. He said, oh, by the way, your boat's ready. I've been waiting for that boat all summer long. Now that my fishing season's over, the boat's ready. I hope, and what I don't know is, when he says it's ready, does that mean it's got a motor on it, or are we still taking the motor off the old boat and swapping them out? So I don't know the answer to that. But my point is, I'm real excited about getting out on Saginaw Bay and doing some perch fishing this fall. I can catch walleye. I can't catch perch. I don't know why. I don't know if it's I don't know where to look. I don't know how to fish them. I don't have the touch for it or what. I don't know. But I want to spend some time out there on Saginaw Bay on that new AnglerQuest chasing perch this fall. Listen, if you have any perch fishing tips, feel free to reach out because I need all the help I can get. My email is mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. I'm not asking for coordinates, but give me some tips. Help a brother out, will you? because I think perch fishing is a riot. It's a great thing to take people who are not hardcore anglers on, and I want to spend some time out there. What else? Next Wednesday for Wednesday Night Live, Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC, will be joining me to talk about issues of the day. I'm sure the Camp Grayling proposed expansion will come up. I'm sure we'll talk about the lack of progress on the consent decree negotiations and much more. That's next Wednesday night. I always do Wednesday Night Lives. Even last week when I was in White River, I did a Wednesday Night Live. That's on my various social media outlets. Speaking of social media, had an interesting interaction this past week. I posted a picture of a buddy of mine, Dave Sapansky, who shot a beautiful 305-pound boar up there in White River. I called it a boar. Some lady said, "I think you made a mistake. That's not a boar. That's a bear." Well, a boar is a male bear. And anyway, she said, "It's a shame to shoot that animal." Ooh, wrong choice of words. I will not allow my social media outlets to be used to demean or put down legal hunting in any method, in any manner, any shape, any form, but that's an entirely different conversation. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show after the break, Skeeter Beckman from Brenton, USA, Ed Roy of the Michigan Wildlife Council, and hour number 2, Jason Teddy, talking about Camp Grayling. Justin Tomei of MUCC, and then Jeff Poet and Dave Minar wrap it up in hour number 3. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. We'll take a break. Lots more coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in St. Joe on 94.9 WSJM. You can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ 1090 AM, and north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by VersaSkins, Michigan-made VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Company owner Paul Perone has come up with a great concept. Rather than spend a bunch of money on different camo pattern hunting suits, why not buy one set of clothes, quality, well-built, and then snap on and zip on an outer layer of a different camo pattern? It's genius. It's very cool. Go to the website versaskins.com, versaskins.com, or go to the Big Woods and Water Outdoor Weekend coming up in Imlay City here after Labor Day, and Paul will be there in person. That's versaskins.com, versaskins.com. I told you that I'm going to do my Michigan bear hunt this year with a gun for the first time ever. A Brenton USA hunting rifle, AR style 350 Legend. Now, I just happened to sight that gun in yesterday. Really enjoyed it. Very accurate gun. I readily admit I need to spend more time with it to become more familiar with the AR platform, but I'm very, very excited about it. I'm very excited to be working with Brenton in general, a Michigan-based company, Michigan-made gun. And now there's another Michigan connection that we're going to talk about here in just a minute as well that I think is very cool. To do that, a guy named Eric Beckman, we call him Skeeter. He's from Brenton, USA, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Eric, welcome to the show. Listen, Eric, I'm going to call you Skeeter, but I'm curious, where'd you get the nickname?
Everybody asks that. I was young and got it from a friend. Had the physique of a mosquito, he told me. It's kind of like calling the big guy tiny. And I've had my wife probably tell me more than once it's probably because I'm annoying and from Michigan. So that's why they call me Skeeter.
All right, so should I call you Skeeter then?
Please do.
All right. So Skeeter, tell me about you. How did you make this association? How did you end up with Brenton?
I got myself a rifle. Really started helping them out, taking some pictures, doing some different social media stuff for them, and it just kind of took off from there. Their pro staff needed help with running it. It's a great rifle. It's pretty easy to be associated with a really good product.
It is. I can relate to that completely. This concept of a high-quality, highly accurate AR-style hunting rifle, I find this fascinating because in the past I've thought of ARs as wonderful guns, but as more of a home defense type gun, or if it hits the fan type gun. I haven't really thought of them as a hardcore hunting rifle.
The platform is fantastic, and it was a good jump off point for what Brenton did with the rifle. We've all picked up those ARs, and once you pick up a Brenton and actually hold it in your hand, you can feel the difference. It is a different rifle than those home defense AR-15s that everybody is used to. So a little bit tricky getting people when you say, I've got an AR style hunting rifle, and they go, I know ARs. And then if they hold this one, they can just feel it's completely different.
The thing that I noticed with my other ARs, they tend to be, I don't want to say sloppy, but they're not as tight. And that's for a reason, right? I get that. They're not designed to be extremely accurate, just extremely reliable in less than great conditions. The thing I noticed about the Brenton is it's tight, at least until you get it broken in. It's solid. It's well built. You're right. You can feel this, and I got to believe that goes to with the end goal being accuracy.
Oh, absolutely. And we look at those ARs and the platform. A lot of people that have used it in the past kind of looked at it like they're grown people Legos. You can kind of you build them and you change things around and you bolt things on and take things away that you don't need. This is a complete package that's actually taken the benefits of the platform. A magazined rifle that's built well. It's built for accuracy. It is solid. I talk to people and they go, well, where can I put the upgrades? And then you go, you tell me where you need to upgrade it. And they spend some time with it and pull it apart and look at the bolt and look at the charging handle and then go, I think maybe you could upgrade this pin to a different color. And I go, if the color of that pin is all you're worried about, I'll buy you some fingernail polish.
How is the PR campaign going with getting the hunting public to accept ARs as hunting tools? Or do you feel that battle has already been won?
I feel that battle is changing constantly. And we've dealt with it at my house with my family. When you say AR, and unfortunately, sometimes that gets some negative publicity. But when you're talking about this rifle at being a hunting rifle, and when we get people to touch and even pull the trigger on this thing, you can see that this is a bolt action rifle that's just set a little bit differently. And it is built for performance. I
do love the trigger. I mean, I don't pretend to be a firearms expert. I'm more of a bow hunter, at least up until this point, but I do love that trigger. Yeah, I'm right with you. I sighted mine in the other day. I took over to Duncan's outdoor shop in Bay City because they've got an indoor range that's just absolutely beautiful. And I think I might have screwed up, Skeeter. Well, I didn't screw up. I didn't follow the recommended procedure you guys lay out for breaking in a new gun. Okay. It's pretty involved, isn't it? I mean, according to the letter of Brent, the guy who designed the first gun, what is the correct way to break in one of these, and how critical is that?
Yeah, Bart Brenton.
Bart, yeah, thank you, Bart.
Yeah, his break-in period. Critical for accuracy, if you want a sub-MOA rifle, you should follow that to the letter. No matter what you did coming out of the box, that rifle is probably going to supersede things that you may have in your closet or your gun safe. I wouldn't be afraid to even start over, It takes a box of ammo to break it in. There's a sequence to do it in. And what you're doing is you're laying down copper in all the little micro imperfections. And here I'm talking to you about how precision this rifle is, and then you say the word imperfections. But it's metal, so it's porous, and it's got little micro imperfections that copper gets laid down in. And then once you go through those break-in procedures, it actually takes 19 rounds. And you have 20 in a box, standard box. We want you to run that 20th round through it to keep it dirty. We don't hunt on clean rifles. We hunt on dirty rifles.
Yeah, that's a discussion I've had several times with Glenn Duncan of Duncan's Sports Shop. The way it is, Skeeter, that gun is more accurate than I am. Even though I didn't follow your procedure and I didn't, shoot once and then clean it and shoot twice, or and I listen. If I was a match shooter, or if I was Paul Phillips or somebody like that, I would have, and I'd be concerned about it. But this gun is going to do more than I'm ever going to ask of it.
Oh, for sure. I had this discussion with my buddy. We were breaking in our 6mm arcs a few days ago. And we went through the break-in process, and at the end of it, he looks at me and he goes, "I'm 100% blaming you if you miss a coyote at this point."
Kind of takes the excuse out of there, doesn't it?
Oh, it does, and I, almost mad about it. You look for all the light was bouncing off of that rock and couldn't really see that well, and he laid it right out there for me. He looked me dead in my eye and said, "It's going to be you if you miss."
I did see a picture of you with a coyote. So you hunt them right through the summertime?
I do. Tend to leave them alone when the pup season's on. But after that, I have no handcuffs when it comes to coyotes.
What do you use? What caliber?
I've used .223 Wild for a long time. I've recently switched to the 6mm Arc off of Bart's recommendation, and I am absolutely in love with that thing.
I decided to go with the 350 Legend. I was looking at the 450 Bushmaster as well. I felt it was just a good all-around Michigan gun. But now I've got people saying, "Oh, you're a little undergunned for a Michigan black bear." What do you think, Skeeter? I think I'm going to be fine.
Oh, you were absolutely fine. I always hate to get into those ballistic charts and try to talk reason into people, especially when they've got something dead set in their mind. Bigger bullet is not always better, and having the biggest, most offensive kick to a weapon doesn't make you the best hunter. That it is all about placement, and that 350, the ballistics, you have plenty of power to take down Michigan black bear. And
I love the lack of recoil.
Yes, isn't it? It's fun to shoot.
Well, there is. We've got some big news we want to talk about after the break. We're talking with Skeeter Beckman of Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, the website BrentonUSA.com, BrentonUSA.com. You can order a Brenton USA hunting rifle from the website. If you use the promo code Avery, you can save $100 on one of these rifles. Again, BrentonUSA.com, BrentonUSA.com. Use the promo code Avery when it comes to checkout, and you can save $100. But there is another way, or there are other ways to get one of these guns. We'll talk about that after the break. We're talking with Eric Beckman, call him Skeeter, of Brenton USA Hunting Rifles. I, for the first time the other day, had a chance to spend some quality time with my 350 Legend. Really enjoyed it. Great gun. I think I'm going to really enjoy using this. I need to spend more time with the gun to become more familiar and more comfortable with the AR platform. And I think that might be the case with a lot of first-time AR users. But it's a beautiful tool, and it is just that. It is a tool to accomplish our goal. BrentonUSA.com, BrentonUSA.com. Use the promo code Avery. We'll take a break. More with Skeeter coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN. You can hear the show in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. And north of the bridge in Marquette on WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website, MUCC.org. That's MUCC.org. And a reminder, next Wednesday Night Live, 7 o'clock on my social media outlets, MUCC Executive Director Amy Trotter will join me to talk about today's wildlife and conservation-related issues. Right now, though, we're talking about getting ready for the fall hunting season. With Skeeter Beckman, he's from Brenton, USA, BrentonUSA.com. I have one of their 350 Legends. I absolutely love it. But Skeeter, there's some big news. I love it when my partners work with my partners. Brenton is a new partner of mine. Jay's is my longest running partner for some 3 decades. And what do you guys got cooked up?
We have set rifles at both locations, the Clare and the Gaylord location. There's a display. They have us up front and center. It looks gorgeous, and we're hoping that all your listeners get in there and just pick one of these things up and just feel the difference.
This is actually pretty exciting news because, I've talked about these guns. We've had other people talking about these guns. You pretty much had to go to the website, but you couldn't get a feel for them. Now you're saying you can go into Jay's in the Clare or the Gaylord store, pick these things up, feel them, and walk out the door with one?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Go in there, pick one up, and we have set 4 different colors and 4 different calibers in the configuration of the fixed stock. We can get anything that the customer may want out of all those colors and configurations and calibers that we carry to those stores in 10 days. So if they like what is there, what we've put together that's popular, fantastic. They can take it with them. If they want something a little bit different, all they got to do is talk to the people at the gun counters, and we're going to be able to get it there in 10 days.
That is pretty cool. It's a big deal to get into Jay's, Skeeter.
Yeah, it is a big deal. I've been dancing around trying to make everything happen, and we pulled it off with help. And we appreciate all the support and all the help that's been given by you and by others. So what I would like to do is, if somebody is looking at the concept, or they want to see these guns, or they want to know what Avery's been talking about, go to Jay's Sporting Goods in Clare or Gaylord. And you can see them in person. If you find one there you like, you can walk out the door with it. If you want to order one, they can be at the store in 10 days. If you can't make it to Jay's, and I think everybody should be able to, but there's still the option of buying them online, right? Yes, absolutely. You can still go to the website, and you can still use the Avery code and put whatever caliber, color, and configuration of stock that they might want.
Well, I'd still like to see folks go to Jay's. I think that's the best option. What's the most popular gun you guys are putting out the door right now? The most popular caliber, Skeeter?
Oh, it's got to be the 350 or the 450 right now. It really is. 450 was big for last year, and we've seen that 350 just make a huge surge. The 223 is always popular, especially with all the varmint guys. There's lots of ammunition around for all 3 of those. But yeah, there's lots of guys ordering them.
I don't have any problem at all getting 350 Legend ammo. It's nice.
No, it's a popular caliber. It is out there and available for purchase.
But you guys do make, you make guns in several different calibers. I don't know if you can rattle them off or not, but you pretty much cover the gamut.
We do cover the gamut, all the way from the 204 Ruger all the way up to the 450. So anything that rides in that AR-15 platform, we carry. So it's real popular with the with the Predator guys, we've got the 6.5 Grendel, we've got the 6mm arc. And we've got some cool stuff that it's going to be able to take just about anything that you want to hunt in Michigan.
Last question for you before I let you go. Brentons are not the most inexpensive gun out there, and there's a reason for that. But why would a hunter want to spend the extra bucks and get a Brenton?
You know, we come across this quite often, and a guy will say, you know, I've got a rifle that I picked up, and I got this thing for $500, and then I've got the AR that I got for $500, and this for $500, and you go, look, at this point, you can take all of your rifles and you can wrap this into one quality piece of equipment, and that quality is going to carry for forever. This thing's got a lifetime warranty. Pick one up, you'll feel the difference. You can see the difference when you look at the rifle. The only thing you've got to get is the performance. So once you get one in your hand and you pull the trigger, you will know exactly why you spent that money on that gun. And
you can get one in your hands at Jay's Sporting Goods in Clare or Gaylord. Thank you, Skeeter. Appreciate your time. I look forward to using my 350 Legend in the woods this fall. I look forward to putting it in my grandson Carter's hands for the youth hunt as well. I did post a video of my initial sight-in with that gun, my initial reaction to it, my initial thoughts. Check that out. That's on my social media outlets. The website, BrentonUSA.com, BrentonUSA.com. Use the promo code Avery to get $100 off, or better yet, go into Jay's Sporting Goods, Clare and Gaylord, and check them out in person. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, wrap up this first hour with Ed Roy of the Michigan Wildlife Council. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WZTK in Alpena, 105.7. You can hear us in, let's go to Holland, WHTC, AM and FM, 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And north of the bridge in Manistee, WTIQ, 1490 AM and 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. Great people at Linwood Beach. I can't say enough about them. Quality people, great facilities, wonderful location, great service. What more could you ask? LinwoodBeachMarina.com, LinwoodBeachMarina.com. While you are online, please head on over and check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Then wander over to hereformioutdoors.org, hereformioutdoors.org, the website of the Michigan Wildlife Council, a group I've been working with for a while now in support of their Here for Generations campaign. This is a group that was formed several years ago to let the non-hunters and anglers of Michigan know what our role is. And you might say, well, why do we care? Well, we care because when these people go to the polls, we want them to know about the outdoors. We want them to know about conservation. We want them to know about the role of hunting and fishing. Ed Roy is a longtime member of the Michigan Wildlife Council. He's been in this campaign, in the trenches of the campaign, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Ed, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. Thanks for having me back. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you over the airways.
Well, the pleasure is mine. How are things going?
Things are going very well. I'm sure you're talking about the upcoming goose season and small game, but probably more to the point about the Wildlife Council. Things are going very well. We've got some recent data from Good Marketing, our vendor assisting the Wildlife Council for going up on 7 years, I think.
Wow.
The original person.
It's hard to believe it's been that long.
Well, I think the statute actually came into being in 2013. People were appointed in 2014, and the campaign was actually launched in June of 2016. And meaning the public campaign, the only reason I know that is because that's when I came on the board was June of 2016, and it's been a heck of a ride and a lot of good things. But to the data, there's been a demonstrable increase in the knowledge of residents of the state, and especially Southeast Michigan, with regard to the role that hunters and fishermen play in supporting financially the wildlife management, and the stats that are kind of impressive, at least from my standpoint, and this would have been a December of 2021 survey, that 65% of Michiganders understand that human wildlife management is necessary for thriving and supporting wildlife populations, which is to be contrasted with only a low of 39%, I believe, measured in 2016 or 2017. So we're really pleased with that statistic. And there are a number of others, but I don't want to necessarily bore people with the raw data, other than to say that for my personal observation is that no one year or no one campaign has been dispositive, but I think there's a cumulative effect that's going on here to kind of carry the message.
Our early conversations, people talked about, moving the needle. We're starting to see some impact. But the numbers you're talking about, Ed, you're making a difference.
We think so, and we're actually looking at doing some additional or deeper dive into whether, beyond more targeting of Southeast Michigan and moving those people who are neutral or moderately approved, whether we need to add another layer here and go to our supporters, as sportsmen, sportswomen, fishermen, to do more direct campaigning, if you will, or promoting to them, because they can be our best ambassadors, however you want to say it, to likewise carry the message through their actions, their communications, in dealing with the public.
That's the first time I've heard of that, Ed. I got to tell you, that concept resonates with me. I would love to see that. I would think that's a great idea. I mean, if it fits in your plans, I think that'd be a positive step.
I think so too. I think there are a number of members, both former and current, that realize, as members of the Wildlife Council, we too can be personal ambassadors for the campaign in our travels, and who we interact with. And I try to appropriately carry the message to those, whether I think they're receptive or not. And so we're kind of the proverbial boots on the ground with people who have a real, vested interest, both as outdoors people and sitting on the council.
Well, Ed, I think you're doing a great job. I think all the folks on the Michigan Wildlife Council are doing a great job, and I enjoy working with you guys. And if you do decide to make a little tweak in the campaign, let me know how I can help.
Oh, very good. Thank you for your offer. You're always most gracious, and we're still trying to keep in mind the shooting sports. I know you are a big fan of, and trapping is kind of the highest layer of this whole process that is coming. So we're still cognizant of our mission, and it's just been a fine-tuning process over a number of years.
All right, Ed, appreciate that. We'll talk again soon. Ed Roy of the Michigan Wildlife Council, the website here for MIOutdoors.org, here for MIOutdoors.org. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, Jason Teddy talking about the proposed expansion of Camp Grayling. That's getting a lot of attention in hour 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. Yes, Outdoor Magazine is, first and foremost, a radio show, a 3-hour, weekly, statewide, syndicated outdoor radio show to talk about hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and wildlife issues and conservation issues and even some wild game cooking. And I think the best way to listen to Outdoor Magazine Radio, if you can, is on your local radio station. As you get your local news and weather and sports and even your local commercials. Maybe there's a sale you want to take advantage of. Also, the radio stations get the content of the show before the podcast version is uploaded. Yes, there is a podcast version. Everybody's talking about podcasting. I love podcasting. Podcasting is huge. Podcasting is great. And I would encourage you, if you have a story to tell, a subject you want to talk about, to get involved in podcast. You can do it easily. You can do it cheaply. You don't need a lot of expensive gear. You don't need a lot of expensive equipment. You don't need a radio studio. But this syndicated weekly 3-hour radio show, I think, helps set Outdoor Magazine apart from a lot of the other podcasts that are out there. Yes, there is a podcast version of the show available if your local station doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, or if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal. The podcast is available usually Sunday afternoons at 6, and you'll never hear me say, oh, the podcast dropped. Podcasts don't drop. They get uploaded and then streamed and downloaded. They don't get dropped. Where do you hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show? Well, you can go to my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can hear it on my Facebook page, on Amazon Music, Audible, Twitter, LinkedIn, Apple Music, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Player FM, Deezer, Odyssey, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcasts from. You can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. It's even on YouTube. I know. It's an audio version of the show on YouTube, yet people tune into it. So feel free to do that. I also do monthly podcasts for Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, Primal Tree Stands, and when we're done with this week's show, we will record the podcast for this month's Polar Craft Boats as well. So check that out. I want to turn our attention now to a topic that's getting a lot of attention here in Michigan. And to be honest, it hasn't gotten a lot of attention from me. And I will apologize to you for that if you're upset at me for that. It's about the proposed expansion of Camp Grayling here in the northern Lower Peninsula. I have some of the content, some of the comments I've been reading are from people who were from a certain perspective. So when I get the opportunity to talk with our next guest, who I think has a very interesting perspective on this, I give his comments a lot of weight, a lot of credibility. His name is Jason Teddy, and he joins me now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Jason, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, Mike. Doing well. Appreciate the opportunity.
Well, listen, I appreciate your time. Give me more on your background, please, because I think that really sets up this conversation.
Sure. Really, my whole adult life's been dedicated to public service. I had a career in the state police, but also a career in the Army and Michigan National Guard at the same time. In fact, I'm on my third career in government service now. So as it relates to the topic at hand, I'm a Grayling native, grew up in Grayling, graduated from Grayling High School, where I learned to count to 20 without taking off my socks. And also I worked at not only being in the Guard, but most of my career was spent in and around Camp Grayling as part of various units there at camp, but also as working active duty there at the airfield, the logistics section, operations section, and even the public affairs office over the years. So I have a pretty intimate knowledge of both the community of Grayling and the activities of the Guard and Camp Grayling.
I would say so, and that's why, and that's why when the opportunity came up to talk to you, Jason, I said, okay, now it's now time to talk about this. So give us the shortened version of what the situation is, please.
Well, the shortened version is that we just learned, we meaning some of the residents there in the affected areas up in northern Michigan, of a proposal by the National Guard to expand the footprint of Camp Grayling by an additional 168,000 acres. Currently, the Camp Grayling is about 147,000 acres or 230-ish square miles, with 130 miles of restricted airspace. And they've also, this proposed expansion would more than double the size of Camp Grayling, which is significant because Camp Grayling is the largest National Guard training facility in the country. And in fact, it's the 7th largest Army training facility. So that tells us that Camp Grayling is a lot bigger than most of our active duty military installations. So the intent, as we were told, was to expand our capabilities into electronic and cyber defenses and training for troops up there. But this all was kind of a surprise because if not for a relatively obscure article by a publication in northern Michigan, none of us would have known about it. And that is one of the most concerning things is as we kind of delved into what was behind this proposed expansion, we found that many of the local townships and counties that were affected had no idea about this proposal. So that's basically how it started. And the concern is, and a question that hasn't been answered yet, is with the current size of Camp Grayling, why can't these activities be done within the current footprint? And the response to that from officials behind this proposal have changed from, well, it's going to be low-impact training, and you're never going to see them in your backyard. They're just going to be sneaking around in the woods, to when the map was published of the proposed expansion, it included firing points. And then there was a concern about our waterways and some of the effects that the additional training might have on the natural resources up there and the accessibility to public lands used for hunting, fishing, gathering, hiking, riding, all of those things.
So this land that they want to expand into, who owns it now?
It's owned by the public, state of Michigan. It's public land, state land managed by the Department of Natural Resources. And what this would be is a lease by the military from the Department of Natural Resources at no cost.
And is this something the DNR has indicated they are willing or open to doing?
That we don't know. They are definitely considering it because when this came out, there was a public opinion period open for 30 days. We learned about this end of May, beginning of June, and there was a window for public comment open until July 8th. It appeared that this process had already been initiated some time ago, and we recently learned that the Adjutant General for the Michigan National Guard had been in contact with the DNR director, Mr. Eichinger, back in January of this year. Yet it didn't become public knowledge until the end of May. Once we learned of it and some calls were made and some letters were written, the DNR has extended that public comment period basically indefinitely. But it's kind of an awkward process in that no one responds to calls or emails. People will be directed to a website that the DNR put up for public comment, which is a good tool, don't get me wrong. However, it's very cumbersome. Cumbersome in the sense that there is a map of the current footprint of Camp Grayling and then the proposed expansions. And within that map, there's specific points that you can click on to open up a dialog box and make a comment. So it's cumbersome in the sense that you would have to pick particular points to comment on rather than addressing the expansion as a whole. And obviously, depending on what part of the expansion might affect a certain person, they may have an opinion one way or another on a section of the expansion, but not the other.
Do you know, would the legislature have to get involved in this too, or could the DNR pull the trigger on it themselves?
From my understanding, no, they don't, and that's a frustrating thing. And the reason for that is any agreements for leases or land or that type of thing on the military side ultimately is determined by the Secretary of the Army. That is then delegated down through National Guard Bureau, who then delegates it to the state adjutants general of whatever particular state that is. So on the military side, it's my understanding that the Adjutant General, the 2-Star of Michigan, has the sole authority to approve any entry into a lease or expansion. Now, on the state side, it's very similar in that it appears the sole authority rests with the director of the DNR. And as you're aware, we now have a director where before we had a council or a commission, but now we have an appointed director, and he is the sole authority for approval.
Jason, hang tight. We've got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. We're talking with Jason Teddy. Jason, when we come back, I'm going to ask for a online resource too. Is there a website or Facebook page or something you guys are using? We're talking about the proposed expansion of Camp Grayling. It's got a lot of people upset, even people who served there in the past, like Jason. We'll talk with him more after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK. That's 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Escanaba, the Riviera of the North, WCHT, 600 AM, 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Rapid River Knives. As always, I have a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now. I carry it with me all the time. I use it on a daily basis. It's amazing when you carry a knife how much you use it. Several times a day, I reach for my pocket, I open up that Rapid River knife, I take care of whatever task is at hand, and I fold it back up and put it in my pocket. Once in a while, I will take it out just to look at it because they're so darn nice. They're beautiful. They're handmade pieces of art made by craftsmen in the UP that are designed to be used. Chris Durson, the owner of Rapid River, says don't ever put these things up on a shelf. Don't ever put them in a box. Use them. Guaranteed for life. The website, rapidriverknifeworks.us, rapidriverknifeworks.us. I would encourage you, if you are in the area, Rapid River Knife Works is just east of town on US 2. Stop into the beautiful showroom and check it out. Tell them the big guy sent you. Tell them Avery sent you. RapidRiverKnifeWorks.us. We're talking now about a topic that is really getting a lot of attention here in Michigan. And to be honest with you, I kind of stayed away from it at first because it felt like it was politics. That's what it felt like to me. And I don't, it's not one of my favorite topics. But this thing has grown so big that it can't be ignored anymore. And when I got the opportunity to talk with Jason Teddy about this, and I found out his background, Jason's a former state trooper, post commander, former military guy who served at Camp Grayling. And Jason, I think in your third career now, I think you're doing some security consulting or something like that, huh?
No, I did that for a little bit in the interim, but now I'm working for a federal agency that I'd rather. I understand.
Enough said. I got you. Yeah. Fair enough. So my point is, you've got some chops. You have the qualifications to talk about Camp Grayling.
Well, I would hope so, both from experience there and as a resident from that area.
So why are you concerned about an expansion? What's the problem? I mean, you're a military guy, former military guy. I got to believe you're pro-military. Why not do everything possible to help our military to become as good as possible? What's the problem with an expansion of the camp?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because that's one thing I want to make abundantly clear is that the overwhelming majority of the folks that are opposed to this expansion are pro-military. This is not a patriotism issue at all. It's a transparency issue that is the concern. There's a lot of retired military and veterans like myself who are concerned about this. Even Camp Grayling employees that are concerned about this, not to mention local business owners and community stakeholders are concerned about this. We love our military, we support our military, and we love having the Guard up in Camp Grayling in northern Michigan. It's a source of pride for us. So the concern is there's two main issues, really. One, there's been no demonstration that the current footprint is not adequate for the type of training that they want to do. taking that a step further, really there's a lot of that 147,000 acres that isn't used currently and hasn't been for some time. And some of that depends on what type of training is going on. But, for example, there's some training areas that were designated for pieces of equipment that don't even exist in the military inventory anymore. So there's a lot of land available. And one of the frustrating parts is when you look back at some of the comments made by the adjutant general and post commander at Camp Grayling, they kind of boast about how much land and training area and airspace is available for military operations. And there's been a push to rebrand Camp Grayling as the National All-Domain Warfighting Center. Now, the military is going to a new concept called multi-domain operations. It's no longer land, sea, and air. Now we've added cyber, we've added space, and all those things. The new doctrine is combining all those into a joint effort operationally. Makes sense, and I'm completely behind that, especially if we look at, some of the things going on in Ukraine with the UAVs and autonomous vehicles and even the development of autonomous weapon system, not to mention all the electronic gizmos that go into providing countermeasures and targeting. So nobody's against that. But during this branding process, there is a huge component that involves defense industry contractors. And one of the concepts boasted about by both the National Guard leadership and some of our senators was capitalizing on Michigan's defense sector to develop these emerging technologies. So when we pull back the curtain on this expansion, this is not something new. This has been, in my opinion, from what I've been able to research, in the works for a couple of years now. Everybody's probably heard about this Operation Northern Strike. And this is a huge multi-disciplinary, multi-agency, multi-military exercise that takes place up in the National All-Domain Warfare Center, which essentially combines Camp Grayling and the CRTC in Alpena, the Air Guard base, not to mention Selfridge and Battle Creek to some extent. And it's kind of a capstone showcase event that incorporates this multi-domain warfighting doctrine in a combined exercise. It's a great exercise. But what we find is there's a lot of defense contractors that are coming up and testing equipment in the National All-Domain Warfighting Center. And when this was rebranded as the NAWC, there were comments made about, well, we've got plenty of room to come up and play. And the camp commander said, my phone has been ringing off the hook with defense industry contractors wanting to come up and use the space. So that begs a lot of questions. One, when it comes to testing and development of military equipment, there's a pretty formal process. And we have proving grounds throughout the country just for that purpose. But it's very cumbersome. And when you want to test and develop a weapon system, for example, at one of the proving grounds, you have to coordinate that with the Army Training and Evaluation Command and file what's called a TEMP, a Training and Evaluation Master Plan. And this is just one example. And within that, you have to detail what you're doing, what you expect to achieve, and even in some of the environmental aspects of your testing and development. But if you go to another DoD facility that is not a proving ground and you want to exercise your new invention as a technical demonstration, you're exempt from those requirements. So when I hear comments and read quotes from our adjutant general or even the camp commander or Senator Gary Peters' office talking about the testing and evaluation of emerging technologies, all in the interest of, enhancing the warfighter capabilities of our soldiers, which I think we all want, there's not much control or oversight on that. On top of that, it appears that there are some private companies that have entered into agreements with Camp Grayling to facilitate this, kind of as an intermediary or conduit for private industry to utilize some of the NADWC's training facilities.
All right, so what could be happening here is we would lose public recreation land, and these private contractors would be getting access to it.
Yes, and to quote Colonel Myers, the camp commander, in his D-Business article from May, those contractors would be leasing land from the NADWC at disgustingly low rates.
I get it. Okay. So all this land that is being talked about now is currently being used for outdoor recreation, a lot of it, by the people of northern Michigan. It wouldn't be available to them, and yet these private companies would be making money on it. Plus the fact that a lot of this seems to be done kind of in secret behind closed doors. Did I kind of sum it up, Jason?
You did, except for it wouldn't be totally closed to the public. And that's how a lot of the land is in the Camp Grayling Military Reservation now, is there's portions of the camp that are obviously closed all the time, primarily due to training or to safety concerns. There are other areas that are only closed during training. However, the problem with that is there's a couple of problems. That doesn't always happen. They may close a certain area off for training and just never come back and open it up again.
Yeah.
And one of the former excuses was, well, we just don't have the personnel to be able to do that. Well, if you don't have the personnel able to do that on 147,000 acres, how can we expect you to be able to do that on 315,000 acres? Then on top of that, we've got the environmental issues, and it's a span of control issue in some regards. Just recently, and you may have seen this, some pictures were going through the national media even of rigid inflatable boats going down the Manistee River loaded with soldiers and automatic weapons. And, we were assured in public meetings that this new proposal would establish a 1,500-foot buffer around any conserved waterways. Well, that's a pretty short 1,500 feet if they're floating right down one of our Blue Ribbon trout streams.
Yeah, I did see that. Listen, I'm almost out of time here, Jason, so I'm going to have to let you go.
Yes,
and in fact, coming up in our next segment, Justin Tomei from Michigan United Conservation Club is going to follow up on that. But where do people go for more resources? You guys got a website? You got a Facebook page? How do you get the word out?
Well, there's a couple of things. The first thing I'll orient you to is the website. And that is 230isenough.com. The number 230isenough.com. And on that site, you're going to get basically a quick breakdown of what the concerns are. There are some links to media articles. There are links to some of the resolutions passed by local bodies of government and some of the environmental groups that are concerned about this. And also some address and contact information for government representatives, including the director of the DNR, Camp Grayling, the adjutant general, and some of our local congressmen and senators.
And I'm sure from that website, there's also a link to the Facebook page. Jason, Teddy, listen, I appreciate your time. I'm absolutely out of time. I got to let you go. I appreciate your insight. And thank you for your service. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, more on this with Justin Tomei of MUCC right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Caro on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. And you can hear us in Port Huron on WPHM 1380 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946. That's when Roland Boning invented Ferrule-Tite to glue broadheads to wooden arrow shafts. These days, Boning continues to innovate, come up with new products. A great Michigan-based company, I would bet, as you are heading into the archery woods this fall, you have Boning products on your setup somewhere. If not, maybe you should. Check them out online at boning.com. That's Bohning, boning.com. I want to turn our attention now to the good folks at MUCC, Michigan United Conservation Clubs, the website mucc.org, mucc.org. This time around, Justin Tomei. Justin, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing real good. Hey, listen, Justin, remind me, what is your role there at MUCC?
I am one of two full-time policy staff. I'm the policy assistant. So along with Amy Trotter, I am one of the lobbyists on staff.
So you guys have got your hands full.
It's been really busy for the legislature not being in session, yeah.
So, Justin, what's the topic at hand this week?
Well, it's going to be Camp Grayling. The DNR kind of released a new FAQ page, and it has a lot of answers and non-answers to some substantive and pertinent questions that people have about Camp Grayling.
We just did a couple of segments on this whole Camp Grayling issue. What's your concern? What's MUCC's concern, Justin?
Well, our membership has dictated to us that we are in opposition of an expansion of Camp Grayling unless there is a national emergency. To date, there has been no national emergency declared. Beyond that, we just have a lot of access and environmental issues and a lot of questions that we haven't had answered regarding the expansion, why it's necessary. In our mind, the Guard has not justified the need for such a large expansion and not properly explained why the existing footprint that they have is not sufficient for their proposed training needs.
Is there also a factor or concern that it seems to be kind of in the hands of two guys, the Adjutant General and the Director of the DNR?
That's always a concern when power and a lot of authority reside with one person. I will say to the DNR director's credit, they opened and expanded public comment on this. Initially everybody thought it was a foregone conclusion that it was just going to happen. And the director, kind of set out a decent amount of public comment availability for people. We're suggesting everyone get their comment in by the end of the month, but it is a big decision and a large project for one person to make a decision on.
I think, this has been in the news for a while, but what really might have helped bring it to the forefront was the pictures of the guys going down the river with the rafts with machine guns.
I saw that. Yeah, one of the things that in the new FAQ page that actually the department released was they talked about that 1,500-foot buffer zone that the Guard has agreed to. And I know that, that picture could not have come at a worse time for the Guard. And the Facebook groups lit up with that one very, very fast.
So what's the status of this now, Justin? I mean, you say you thought maybe it was a foregone conclusion, which makes me think maybe now it's not. Where are we at?
Well, the NRC chair, Tom Baird, said at, I believe the August meeting, maybe the July meeting, that the public should get their public comments in by the end of August. That's kind of a soft deadline for that. At that point, the director is going to review the comments the department's received and ultimately make a decision on whether or not to go through with a review. If there is a review, they'll have to look parcel by parcel at all of the proposed expansion lands, see how the land was acquired, if it was tax reverted from the feds, was it purchased with PR funds. They'll have to do environmental impact studies, and that process is going to take a year. So if the director decides to go through with the review, we're still a year out before the actual final proposal could even be made.
Is all of the land in the proposed expansion, is that all public land at this point?
To my knowledge, yeah.
Okay.
And the DNR staff will go through, like I said, and look at it in 40-acre chunks and figure out how the land was purchased, what it's used for currently, if there's any environmental issues that would prevent it from being included in the expansion.
Well, it's certainly been in the news. What else is on your radar screen right now, Justin?
Well, something a little change of pace. I'm actually going up to St. Ignace tomorrow for the Bear Forum on Friday, talk about bears.
Wonderful.
Yeah, MUCC was just at the NRC meeting. We talked about turkeys in the August meeting. It never stops.
Now, the Bear Forum, talking about proposed regulations, increases in tags, what is the context of this Bear Forum? It's
all of the above. It's kind of a time for the public and stakeholder groups to get in front of the DNR staff, share what's working, what's not, what they think potentially could change. The DNR will also provide information from their harvest surveys and things like that, and it's just a really good opportunity for stakeholder groups and the public to get informed on these bear hunting issues as the regulatory cycle for those kicks off, I think, early next year.
All right, Justin, appreciate your time. Appreciate you keeping an eye on things for us. Justin Tomei of MUCC, the website MUCC.org. That's MUCC.org. If you want to use the promo code Mike, all caps, you can save 25% on signing up to become an MUCC member first time around. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment, I'm still kind of mulling over a couple of topics. And in our third hour, Jeff Poet of Jay's Sporting Goods on an Alaskan hunting adventure, and wild game chef Dixie Dave Minar here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. Just looking up a couple of things here. I should have done this before, but I got involved in a couple of other. ASKAVRY. There we go. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WIOS in Tawas, AM and FM, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. In Traverse City, WTCM, 580 AM. And north of the bridge, in the Sioux on News Talk 1400 WKNW. I was listening to WKNW as I went through the Sioux last week on my way up and back from my Michigan or my Ontario bear hunt. By the way, the Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by my friends from Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way this works is you can ask me a question, hence the Ask Avery title. Something you want me to answer directly. Something you want me to see if I can figure out from the DNR, MUCC, any other group out there. Maybe I have access to that you don't. The best way to get these to me is to send me an email, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I would prefer not to get them through the social media messaging platforms because it gets so confusing. Just send me an email, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. This time, a couple of questions. This one from Michelle Plowman. She says, with this new DNR app, if we purchase our license online, do we still have to print it off as proof, or can we just open the app to show the warden if asks? No, you do not have to carry printed versions of your license anymore. For one thing, the officer can always look it up just based on your driver's license number. And yes, you can show him your electronic version of your license. That's just fine. The place where that doesn't hold true is if you have to have a kill tag. So like a bear tag, a deer tag, anything that you're going to put a tag on, you have to have that printed tag with you or you don't have a license. I mean, if you got game with you, right? And she's talking about the app. I haven't downloaded the app yet. I don't know if this is the process which is going to allow us to do the online deer registration this fall. Now, this whole online deer registration has got a lot of attention, and not all of it good. Basically, what it's saying is you have a certain amount of time to let the DNR know that you harvested an animal. Some people say it's Big Brother getting involved. They say it's too intrusive. They say we let the government know enough about what we're doing. Which I don't like those concepts either. But I will say in this case, other states have been doing this for years. In fact, I've called and said publicly that Michigan was behind the curve by not doing this. If you really want to get a handle on how many deer are being killed, don't rely on those deer survey harvest questionnaires they send out. Just make it a mandatory thing, but you make it so you can do it easily, that you don't have to go to a DNR check station. just go online and do it. Well, I'm going to be in the middle of the UP, and my 80-year-old dad doesn't know how to do this stuff. I get it, but there are ways around everything. I mean, if you want to abide by the law, you can find a way to do it. I will tell you this: that this first year of this, there will not be any tickets written. I've already been told this by several people in the DNR. They look at the first year of any new law or rule or regulation as an educational opportunity. They did the same thing with baiting. There will not be any tickets written for that this year, with the caveat: if you are an absolute idiot to an officer, and you are a pain, and you are just some kind of a jerk, they will find a way to write you a ticket. So, but if you are a decent person and you're not real rude to them and you're not being an idiot, there will be no tickets written for that. I have heard that from the DNR. Next question comes from Lloyd Wright. He says, "Hey, Mike, I listen to the show every week, usually by podcast." This is for you, Pat. "My question pertains to your producers. We hear you thank them and speak to them, all three of them. There are only two. My question is, why don't you speak with them?" We're doing a little... This was not planned either. Okay. The question is, why don't you speak with them so the listeners can hear? Just something I've always noticed. I don't know, Pat. Why do I not speak with you?
I don't know. Why don't you speak with me?
That's Pat right there. The way I was looking at it, Pat, is both you and Charlie spend your entire day talking, and I thought it would just be a nice break for you guys just to sit in here and just listen for a while.
I like that.
Yeah. So, see, we did it. We took care of it. We got Pat Johnson on. So, anyway, a little fun on the Ask Avery segment this week. And our thanks to the friends at the Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Now Charlie's going to be jealous. Charlie's going to be jealous we didn't include him. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, Jeff Poet of Jay's Sporting Goods talking about an Alaskan hunting adventure, wild game chef Dave Minar, and lots more. My name is Mike Avery, the website MikeAveryOutdoors.com, my email address Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and thank you to Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. More than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan. The podcast available anywhere literally in the world. I'm also active on social media. I have a love-hate relationship with social media. Social media sometimes brings out the worst in people. Yet it's a great way for me to interact with you. I mean, I love the radio show, but it's kind of one-sided, right? It's me sitting at this microphone talking with my guests, but I can't interact directly with you, the listener. You can't ask me a question, and we can't have a conversation. On social media, we can, and that's one of the things I really do like about social media. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and I'm almost embarrassed to say it. I started playing around on TikTok. You won't see me doing dancing music videos. Thank God. But I'm starting to post some outdoor-related videos on TikTok just because the audience, the scope of the people I can reach is so big. And And that's the goal of what I want to do, right? I want to reach people in my quest to talk about hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping, and encourage people to get involved in such activities, educate people in whatever ways I can, and in some small way defend those activities by portraying them and promoting them in the positive light that they are. I mean, those of us who love this outdoor lifestyle, we know it's a good thing. We know it's a wholesome, healthy, positive thing. And if you want to go down this road, even ordained by God. So there's nothing wrong here, right? And I never pretend to be an expert, but I sure love my outdoor adventures. And I love this great state of Michigan. I was born in this state, raised in this state, made my career in this state, and the vast majority of my hunting and fishing adventures have been right here in Michigan, and I look forward to each and every one of them. But isn't it nice once in a while to get out and do something special? For example, last week I was up in White River, Ontario on a bear hunt. I love that. One of the most beautiful places I have ever been is Alaska. Oh my goodness, it is breathtakingly beautiful. And you'll be going down a river or a coastline and come around a corner and say, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And a half mile later, you say, oh my gosh, that's even more beautiful. It's breathtakingly beautiful. The critters that are there are magnificent. The scenery is great. The countryside, the terrain can be pretty rough and pretty brutal. And you got to be a pretty tough person to take advantage of that. Jeff Poet of Jay's Sporting Goods. He's the president of Jay's. It was his dad, Jay, who started Jay's Sporting Goods. Well, Jeff is at the helm these days, and it's quite a job. It's a busy job. But it doesn't prevent him from getting involved in some outdoor adventures once in a while. In fact, every chance he can get. And he's on the Outdoor Magazine phone line with us now to talk about a recent adventure that he had. Jeff, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me. I can't get that vision of the TikTok thing and you dancing out of my head right now. Just can't do it. Shouldn't have put it there. No, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Always a pleasure. How are things at Jay's? It's got to be a busy time of year for you, isn't it?
Yeah, we're right on the cusp of, September and fall and everything going. The kids are getting back in school and guys have either had their food plots in or they're putting them in. They're getting game cameras out. It's just kind of that pre-game, and so it's an exciting time. And we're trying to prep here at the store and get everything ready and push to the last, to the line here. So good to go.
And you've also, you're getting ready for your 51st anniversary celebration coming up in September.
Yes. Yep. 51 years. Boy, it was a big one last year. We've got some things. We got more product this year than we did last year, so we're going to have some more sale stuff, which is good. I mean, that's kind of what we've always done in the past, and we weren't able to do that through a couple of the COVID years there. So we're excited about this year's anniversary sale, which is, the weekend after Labor Day.
Well, good deal. Good deal. Tell me about this most recent adventure you were on, Jeff.
Well, I had an opportunity to hunt dall sheep in Alaska, and I booked this hunt prior to COVID back in 2019, and it was a 2022 hunt, and it came to fruition that time. Finally clicked off the clock, and it was time to go. And so it was what a hunt. Obviously, we don't have dall sheep here in Michigan. I'm like you. I love hunting in Michigan, but that's one that you can't get here. And I've been to Alaska several times, and I kind of feel like a second home because so much of it is similar to northern Michigan and the UP. I mean, it's just breathtaking. Minus the mountains. The mountains we don't have, obviously, why we don't have the sheep. But it was a great hunt. I really enjoyed it.
When you booked
brutal. It was a brutal hunt.
Well, yeah, I want to follow up on that.
I'm on the other side of it now, so I can say that during it wasn't so, it wasn't so great. But all hunts can be like that. So
when you booked it in 2019, did you know you were booking it for 3 years out, or did COVID push you back that far?
No, I had, fortunately, that was my time. I had booked it 3 years in advance, and I was on a moose hunt up there at that time in 2019, and my guide was, I kept catching him. He was like, the spotting scope went from where we were watching moose in this valley up to the side of this mountain. And finally I asked him, I said, well, what are you looking at there? Oh, sheep. You know, and he was a sheep guide at heart, and he was, you know, we were hunting moose, and so I thought, well, that's pretty cool. You know, I'm in sheep country here too. So at the end of the hunt, or during the hunt sometime, I told my guide, I said, you know, I'm probably at the age that I'm not going to be able to chase sheep anymore. And he didn't say anything. We shot a moose, packed it out, did all the work, blah, blah, blah. And at the last day of the hunt, he said, you need to think about booking a sheep hunt. So that gave me encouragement that maybe physically I could still do this hunt. So that's how that all came about.
Dall sheep, that's the big white one?
Yeah, pure white. Look like snow up there on the mountain. Little dots from where you see them in the beginning. Little dots through the spotting scope or your binoculars.
With the big curl?
Yep, full curl. In order to be a legal ram, it has to be a full curl. And there's 3 different ways to measure that. And so these guides that are sheep guides, they spend a tremendous amount of time determining if that is a legal sheep or not. It's really bad if you shoot one that's not legal. They confiscate it, and there's tickets and all that. And so they spend it. Plus the energy that it takes. Usually you spot these down low. And so before you spend all the energy of climbing that mountain, you want to make sure you're going after something that you're going to be able to harvest.
So you're camped down at the base of the mountains, and you're scoping the size of the mountains to look for sheep.
Yes.
And then from what, a mile away or whatever the distance is, your guide has to decide if that's worth going after?
Yes. Yep. And the guides that I was with, and he had the best equipment. So he had guided several sheep hunts, very experienced. And it's just amazing. Like, I could not make that determination, you know, that's a legal sheep, because sometimes we're only talking an inch or two, and they might be a mile and a half off. And sometimes you want to get a little closer, like you'll cut the distance and let's check it out again before we make that final push, you know, up to the top. This time of year, it was the first sheep hunt, and the sheep just tend to be up really high. They just the weather pushes them down. Obviously, the longer the season goes, and if they get snow and wind, they start to come down. But when I was there, they darn buggers were right at the very top.
Well, if your guide had the best equipment, he must have bought it at Jay's.
I don't know. I offered some up. If anything ever happened, I know where you can get replacements.
I bet you do. Jeff, listen, we got to take a break here, and then I want to get into the heart of this adventure. We're talking with Jeff Poet of Jay's Sporting Goods, jaysportinggoods.com, jaysportinggoods.com. Jeff's dad, Jay, started Jay's. Jeff is running the company these days with a lot of help from a lot of other great people, including several generations of the Poet family. I've told this before, and I'll say it so many times until I'm done here with what I'm doing, but it was Jay's that allowed me to do what I'm doing today. It was Jay's that stepped up when I came to them and says, I have this opportunity, but I don't know if I can do it. And they said, you can do it, and we will help you do it. And they did, and they gave me the confidence and some financial backing to get me going. And so that's why I have been so loyal to Jay's Sporting Goods and the Poet family for more than 30 years now. I've had opportunities to work with other people, and I'm not going to do it. I'm a Jay's guy as long as they'll have me. jaysportinggoods.com, jaysportinggoods.com. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we'll talk more with Jeff Poet about this wonderful sheep hunting adventure in the beautiful state of Alaska right here on Outdoor Magazine. can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. And you can hear us in Sandusky out in the Thumb on WMIC 660 AM 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Brenton USA Hunting Rifles. In fact, you just heard a commercial for them. AR-style, highly accurate, tough and dependable hunting rifles that could change the way you hunt. They're made in Lansing, just down the road from the governor's office. I've got a new Brenton 350 Legend that we're going to use for my grandson for the youth hunt, coming up here very soon now. I'm going to use it for my Michigan bear hunt, and then I'll use it for deer hunting here in Michigan as well. I sighted it in just the other day. Very, very impressed with that gun. But here's something that's real impressive, too. You can now see those Brentons at Jay's Sporting Goods in Clare and Gaylord. You've heard me talking about them. Well, now you can see them in person. You can pick them up. You can hold them. If there's a gun there that you like, you can walk out the door with it. If you like the concept, if you like the product, but they don't have one there, you can order it. The website, BrentonUSA.com, BrentonUSA.com. And I bring up the Jay's connection because we're talking with Jeff Poet of Jay's Sporting Goods. They've got their 51st anniversary celebration coming up here just after, the first weekend after Labor Day. But in the meantime, company president Jeff Poet has been to Alaska on a dall sheep hunting adventure. Jeff, how do you physically prepare for a hunt like that?
You know, Mike, you do everything you can do. And, looking back on it, everything that I did do helped, but you can't be totally prepared. Most of us have a regular life, like we got to work and we have family functions to go to, and those things get in the way of trying to prepare a lot of the time. And then summertime, and it's hot, it's when the time you need to be preparing, it's, 90 degrees and 90% humidity, and it's, sometimes you just don't feel like it, but you have to push yourself. But, I put weight in a pack. I started out kind of going, I have a road that's got up and downs to it. I got a ski hill. Snow Snake is just down the road from my house. I got permission to hike up and down their hill. So I was doing a tremendous amount of that. And of course I'm a little bit older, and it seems like, something would break and I'd get that fixed, and then something else would go haywire and I'd try and get that fixed. And it was a challenge preparing, but I did as much as I thought I possibly could do.
I've always thought on a hunt like that, your boots would be extremely important. They are. I mean, you're on them every day. I did not anticipate the amount of water I would be in. I mean, in my mind, you think, okay, I'm hunting mountains. I'm not going to be around a lot of water. Well, in these riverbeds and drainages that you're doing, you're crossing the river a dozen times a day, and it really is. I mean, do not skimp on boots and gaiters. Those two things can be pretty critical. When you go on a trip like this, from an equipment perspective, do you kind of have an idea what you need because you've been out there before, or does the outfitter say, hey, look, here's what you need to make sure you bring?
It's a combination of both. I really watch what the outfitter says. Hey, these items are critical. Make sure you've got them, and I always have those items packed. And then there's some things just from experience that that personally fit you. And of course, you're trying to hit a weight. I was trying to hit 50 pounds or less of gear, that you can live on for 12 days in the bush. And so you really pare things down. And I'm a gear guy, Mike, you know that. And I want to try all this stuff. And you start out with a great big pile, and you keep saying, okay, do I absolutely need this item? And it comes out of the pile. And you finally get down to, these are the essentials. And you make sure you got what the guide tells you on the list, because they've done it so many times. They just know. And we had pretty fair weather. We did have some snow and some rain. I mean, you're just going to get that. But overall, we had a lot of nice hunting days as well. And we could have had a lot worse weather, and some of the gear that I didn't use as much, I may have used more. But I felt very well prepared on the gear side of what I had.
So when you went out there, did you have an idea how long of a shot you might be facing?
Well, no, not exactly. They told us to be prepared to shoot 400 yards, and I did more preparation at 300. I happened to have a Leupold with a CDS dial on it. I did a lot of shooting, and I was very comfortable at 300. At my home, that's how far I could shoot. I didn't have the 400-yard range, but the way that dial was working for me, I would just had a ton of confidence in it. And it worked out that the guide was right. My shot was 409 yards.
No kidding.
In the end. So, yeah, that's where we ended up. And it was a little stretch for me because they just hadn't practiced at that. But I put a good shot on them.
So what do you have? What do you need to take down an animal that size at 400 yards?
I was using a 27 caliber. It was a 27 Nosler. That was very sufficient. I mean, there was the guy that went in with me. He was using a 6.5 Creedmoor, I believe. I don't know that the flatter you can get, the better, because those shots can be long. If he would have said 500 yards, I don't know if he would have told me that, because I told him, hey, my range is really between 200 and 300. If we can get to 200 and 300, but then you look up at the mountain and you go, gosh, I don't even know if I can get there. And so the longer distances are sounding better because you just don't have to climb as far.
Yeah.
But again, I had the confidence in it, and the guide carries a bigger gun because you can come across bears in that. But he was very confident with the 27 caliber that I had. That was very sufficient.
So how many days into your hunt did you actually take your animal?
I had 3 days that we spent before the season opened to scout and find sheep, and I took it on the 6th hunting day. So I was in the bush for 9 days, and then one more day to pack out. So I was in there for 10 days.
So did you have close encounters with other critters before then?
Just a porcupine.
Oh, really?
Was the only other. And porcupines are porcupines. In Michigan or Alaska, them little buggers, yeah, we had one that was pretty close to camp, and he skedaddled. But the guide we did have an encounter. I didn't personally see the bear, but when the guide was up a little higher than I spotting sheep, we had a grizzly bear kind of come through and made the sheep a little nervous. They went a little higher, which isn't, makes the work a little harder, but they didn't blow out or go over the mountain. So we hunted that sheep for a couple, 3 days.
So were you starting to get frustrated or nervous? Did you start to say, hey, I wonder if this is going to come together?
Yeah. I mean, the whole trip, it's hard to describe. I mean, people that have been on a hunt, Mike, will understand, but it's just hard to describe the physical and mental things that you got to overcome. Because when you go in, you got what you got. You can't, go back to the truck. You can't go back to town. You can't go get something to fix something that's wrong. And like I said, on your body, the physical wear, no 2 steps are on flat surface. You're on rocks. You're either climbing or you're on that spongy grass trying to gain elevation on feels like a 45-degree angle. And things hurt. And day 3 of the hunting, I was like, I just want to kill a sheep to kind of end this brutality. It was like a mountaineering marathon. We were just constantly, and you're in water, and no matter how good your boots are, you're going to get wet. Either they're going to sweat or you're going to go over the top of your gaiter. And I did that several times. I slipped on a rock. I fell. The day I shot my sheep, I fell in the creek, and so the whole right side of my body was totally wet. And you can't let that stop you. You get up, you shake it off. If you've got a shirt in your pack, you put a new one on and you keep going. You can't let that stuff deter you. And I had all my toes taped because they start swelling, and I just taped my toes because I can't afford a blister now. And I look like, Dick Butkus, all taped up with my fingers and my toes and it's stuff. But you just do what you can do to get there.
So on the day that you shot your sheep, tell me that story. Did you spot them early in the morning or what?
We knew the sheep was in there. We had spotted them earlier, like on the day before my hunt started, but we went in deeper to find another sheep. We found a good sheep. We hunted that sheep for 3 days, and it just stayed at the very top.
You hunted a particular sheep for 3 days?
Oh, yeah. He was there for 3 days, and we gave it a time limit, and we said, okay, at this time, if he hasn't come down, and the problem was we could go to the top. The problem with the particular mountain that we were on, it was a sheer granite face that went about 90 feet straight up. There was no climbing this. And the guide said, we could get close enough, you could shoot it, but I can't get it. I can't get it down unless it rolls. And if it rolls and it falls 90 feet, we're probably going to have busted horn. That doesn't sound like a good deal to me. So at the end of the time period that we set, we pulled stakes. We went back to where we saw this other sheep earlier, and we started hunting that one again. And so that was, probably day 5. And so we knew that sheep was in there. We went up one of the drainages. He got him in the scope, found him, and we just continued to climb and climb and climb. And I can't tell you, it's hard to describe, Mike. When you see those things near the top, you just don't think, can you get there? And then this is already on day 6, so I'm spent. I mean, I've been up and down the mountain. I've been through these river things crossing. No 2 steps are stable because you're always on rocks and boulders, and you're hopping, and I just can't. It's hard to describe.
So are you trying to stay out of sight? I mean, do they have great eyesight? Can they pick you off if they see you coming up?
Yes, that's the one thing is smell and sight. And so you're working thermals. There's a certain time of day we can go up, and we want the thermals working in our favor. Plus, we have to go up a drainage that's on the other side of them so they don't see us going up, and then you kind of lateral over and get underneath them if you can. And everything just has to come together, and obviously not all of your pushes to the top work. That either they're up there and they won't come down and they need to, or they winded you, or things go south, and you just can't let that bother you. You got to keep on hunting.
Jeff, can you give me a few more minutes? I'd like to hear more about this. I'd like to hear the culmination of this story if you can stick around.
Sure can.
All right, we're talking with Jeff Poet of Jay's Sporting Goods, the website jaysportinggoods.com, jaysportinggoods.com. Jeff is an avid Michigan guy, just like we all are. But every once in a while, he likes to get out and have a hunting or fishing adventure, this time in Alaska on a dall sheep. I've seen the picture. It is absolutely beautiful. We'll hear the rest of the story right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Manistee on WMLQ. That's 97.7 FM. You can hear us north of the bridge and west of the bridge in Iron Mountain, WMIQ 1450 AM. And you can hear us in Saginaw on WSGW AM and FM 790 AM 100.5 FM. In fact, I'm in the studios of WSGW right now, and for this 3 hours, I call this one small corner of the building the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. But actually, I'm only borrowing it from Pat Johnston. Pat is in here the rest of the week doing his own work, but he helps me out here on the show. And Pat, I do certainly appreciate it. He's doing a great job, as always. Couldn't do it without the guys who help me out here in the studio. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and your property because it's our nature and your nature, our nurture. That's how it goes, your nature and our nurture. Let Reader create an outdoor getaway in your backyard, as they have for me. I was sitting out there last night, just kind of enjoying the sunset. I'll be honest, I was smoking a cigar, looking at the water feature, looking at the little waterfall that we have here, just thinking how blessed I am to be where I am in this world. And that one small part of the world, Reader has really helped us create a beautiful spot there, and I do appreciate it. Let them do the same for you as they have for me. The website, readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. One of the reasons I have been blessed and continue to be blessed is my partnership with the folks at Jay's Sporting Goods, including the Poet family. Jeff Poet, a good friend of mine, he's the president of Jay's Sporting Goods, and he's telling us a story about this Alaskan dall sheep hunting adventure. And Jeff, what altitude were you guys at, by the way?
Well, when we got the sheep, we were about 6,700 feet.
Ooh.
Mike.
Ooh.
Yeah. We'd start out about 3,500 to 4,000 and elevate.
And you can't train, and here in Michigan, you can't train for the altitude, can you?
It's hard. It's hard. It really is. I took, some supplements that kind of help you mountain ops we sell, and I was kind of demoing some of that. They've got an altitude. I think it worked pretty good. I didn't have a problem with the altitude. It was the cardio, getting your muscles to go up and down. So,
well, congrats on getting it done. So to finish the story on your sheep, Jeff.
Yeah, it was pretty close to the end. We'd spotted this ram that, there were 3 rams together. One was a good legal ram, and so we make the push. We do all the maneuvering going up the gutter on the side to eliminate our wind possibility of boogering us up, and we got up there, and it takes you a couple hours. It takes me a couple hours. Those guys move a lot faster than I do, but we get up there and they're chilling. The sheep are just kind of chilling out, and they have a tendency to feed every so often. So they get up and they go down and they a little bit, or they find feed wherever they're bedded. And so we had to kind of wait for that moment. So you're pretty anxious during that whole time, like, okay, they're going to get up. They're going to get up. We get up. We want to do this, So you do have a little bit of time, or I did in this case, for the adrenaline to kind of settle down a little bit. And sure enough, he stands up. The guide and I communicate extensively on which of the 3 sheep is mine. We had to identify it back and forth so we didn't get the incorrect sheep, and that's a bad deal. So we did that, and I got lined up. Now, what's hard, Mike, is that when you're I've never practiced shooting on that angle. It was really hard for me to get into the scope and see that full view that you want. It kind of tends to black out when you hold your gun up at a 50-degree angle. So anyway, I finally got settled in where I could see it, and I had it down on a lower power. And the first shot I was a little bit low. The guide gave me the cue word. They give you a word instead of shoot or don't shoot, because sometimes that all blends in, especially with my hearing. So I got the cue word that I've got a green light to pull the trigger on this. My first shot was low. And he says, I in retrospect, looking back, I knew I should have just dialed that right to the top on the power. And so I did that, and he said, okay, you got to wait, because that other sheep stood up and now is in front of him. And I said, yeah, I see that, so I'll let you know when you can shoot again. So eventually they spread apart. It was about a 2 or 3 minute deal. They kind of got separated again. Second shot, I just put it right in the breadbasket. And what a great feeling that was. It was just unbelievable. The accumulation of all the hard work, prior to the hunt, practicing, working out, getting there, going through, 9 days of brutal up and down and cross country, and to finally put one down. And it was a beautiful sheep. It ended up rolling down the hill about 100 yards. So it wasn't Snow White when we picked up a lot of dirt on the way down. But I was just the happiest man on the face of the earth at that moment in time, I'm telling you.
Well, it is a beautiful animal, and I, by the time folks hear this show, I will have posted this picture, if you don't mind, Jeff, on my Facebook page, too, to let people see it, yeah.
No, go ahead. Gives you an idea of how the altitude and the country you're hunting in when you see the picture.
Well, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful animal. You've got a great smile on your face. It's obvious that you worked hard for that. And I appreciate you, Jeff. I know you're a busy guy. I appreciate you taking some time out to share the story with us.
I'm glad you gave me a call and gave me the opportunity. I love sharing hunting stories. So,
well, you're welcome here.
You know that.
You're welcome here anytime, my friend. Jeff Poet of Jay's Sporting Goods. The web, you're more than welcome, Jeff. Thank you. The website for Jay's is jsportinggoods.com, jsportinggoods.com. They're getting ready to celebrate their 51st first anniversary, and I appreciate Jeff sharing his story of his Alaskan dall sheep hunting adventure. How cool is that? We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery, also known as The Big Guy, and it is my pleasure to be here every week for 3 hours at this microphone talking about the outdoors, the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle, the adventures, and the satisfaction of helping to feed your family. Now, listen, a hunting or fishing trip is not deemed a success by whether you kill something or catch something. But isn't it nice that sometimes that happens and then we get to share that adventure, that wild game, that fish with our family and our friends? And there is no better person to do that than wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. He helps us wrap up each week's show, and he's here once again. David, welcome back. How are you?
Pretty dang good, Mike. And yourself?
I couldn't be better. Absolutely couldn't be better. It's a beautiful day out. I'm here in the studio doing something I love, and all is good with the world.
Well, you know, you're absolutely right. I'm doing the things I love, and it's just wonderful. Just wonderful.
What do you have for us this week, David?
Well, I've got a sheephead recipe. But you could actually, in a pinch, you could substitute walleye or salmon.
That's good to hear.
If you didn't get any of them, you might land a couple of nice big sheepheads. So, anyways, laugh if you will, but it's just good fish. Nobody seems to think so.
I know it. I'll say I'll trust you because you've told me that for years.
I'll make you some. Bring it to the studio one day. Anyways, we need about 8 to 10 ounces of boneless, skinless sheephead per person. And you're going to need Zatarain's fry mix. It's a little spicy. It's almost like a Cajun kind of a fry mix. Like Drake's is kind of bland until you put it in a beer batter or something. But Zatarain's got a little zing to it. So you need about 4 ounces of sliced mushrooms, 1 large tomato diced up, kind of medium size. You don't have to skin it or anything. A small onion, small to medium onion, diced up fine. 3 cloves or more to your taste, diced up real fine. And you're going to need vegetable oil to kind of, you're going to almost like deep fry this, but you're only going to use about 1/4 inch to a little bit more in your frying pan, and I'll explain to you in a minute. You're going to need some Parmesan cheese and a pound of cooked al dente angel hair pasta. Nice thin pasta for this dish. What you're going to do, sheephead got a real tough skin, and so you're going to need a very sharp knife, and you want to skin them. And then after you get them skinned, you don't have to bother scaling them because you're going to, when you fillet these fish out, you want to fillet them kind of deep and leave the red meat on the skin. And if there's any left, say like by the lateral line, trim most of that off, and you'll find it's a much more enjoyable tasting. So you want to cut it into strips, either 1 by 2 or 2 by 3, so that they're a nice hearty size. Wash them real good, get any scales off. Soak them overnight in half and half. Now, in a shallow pan, after you use, like I said, about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of vegetable oil, and then you want to pat the fish dry, and then you're going to put it in the Zatarain's, and you're going to squeeze the Zatarain's right onto like each individual piece of meat, and then in a nice hot pan, you want to get that oil up to 350, 325, something like that. Not too hot to burn it. You don't want to scorch that Zatarain's. It's going to fall off and fall into the bottom. So what you're going to do is brown it on one side, turn it with a pair of tongs or a fork, whatever you like to use. Get it all browned up on all sides. And by that time, it should be almost fully cooked. So you can put it in a warm oven. And in the same pan, if you're going to use the same pan, wipe it out a little bit. You can use that oil time and time again. Just drain it off slowly into a container, and then whatever stuff is in the bottom, you're going to throw that away, like the stuff that falls off the fish. And you can put it in the refrigerator, and you can use it a couple times probably, no problem. I've done it at the cabin for years. So after you get that fish out and the oil taken care of, you're going to saute the mushrooms, onions, and garlics and tomato for just 2, 3, 4 minutes, something like that, depending on how hot your pan is. Add the half and half, get it up to a boil, reduce the heat down, kind of taste it and see if this is what you're looking for. Then slowly, gently cook it, thicken it with Parmesan cheese. Now, at this point, you can either divide the pasta up and all of the goodies on plates, or you can put the fish back in it for a little while and just try not to break it up. It's easier just to lay it on top, but some people would do it the other way. So if you're going to do that, you can put the pasta down, put the fish on top, sprinkle it with Parmesan cheese. Or if you can divide it up without breaking that fish up, do it that way too. And man, I'll tell you what, you'll never toss a blank head back.
I'm going to have to trust you on this one. I'm actually surprised. I thought we were doing a salmon recipe. I thought you were kidding me with the sheephead recipe. So, but I'm glad. Listen.
I said you could use salmon or what?
Yeah, I know you did.
In a pitch.
You just threw me a little curveball, and I like that. And it's a great way to wrap up this week's Outdoor Magazine show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar and a surprise sheephead recipe. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Do not hesitate to reach out, and I look forward to talking with you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.